really. And so many of them are very instructive and, very revealing and helpful. So he told me about this incident then, that he didn't really know what to say, but he said, yes, if the devotees are sincere and chant their rounds and follow the regulative principles, it'll go on. And Srila Prabhupada, at the time, this is just 3 or 4 days before Prabhupada left this world, so he was really quite physically incapacitated. So Prabhupada spoke with great difficulty. He sort of agreed with that idea of sincerity and chanting and being Krishna conscious, that sort of foundational type of idea. But then Srila Prabhupada said, organization, intelligence and organization. So Giriraj Maharaj and I discussed that on a number of occasions, over the years. We were associating together quite a bit now for 40 years, pretty much. We met in 82, actually it was. Yes, so the thing is that we need to be sincere and we need to be Krishna conscious. If we're not Krishna conscious, well, all the organization and what's the other thing? Organization and cooperation in the world. If you're not Krishna conscious, it's not going to get you very far, because you know better than me, in the business world, organization, getting things and keeping things organized, that's kind of the name of the game. Yeah, and cooperation, learning how to work together, even learning how to work together with people who, if you, just like in a social environment, if you had the choice, you might not really get involved with them, sort of not your type of person. But for the service of Krishna, for the service of Srila Prabhupada, for the development of the Krishna consciousness movement. So we have to do it. And so Maharaj is talking about this, that we have to be organized, we have to be sincere, we have to chant as the foundation. But we also, this is one thing which distinguishes ISKCON from other, at least some or many other spiritual or Vaishnav even organizations. A lot of them aren't really that organized. Some are. I know Swami Narayan are organized. Pusti Marg, Vallabhacharya, and so on. They've been around. They don't seem to be so organized. But ISKCON, at least we try to organize. We do try to organize. So Prabhupada was emphasizing that, really placing emphasis on this. Intelligence, using our brains and organizing things on the basis, like the foundation of chanting and cooperating. Prabhupada, you all know, as well as me, one of Prabhupada's last instructions was that your love for me will be shown, right? You know that one. By how you cooperate together after I am gone. And I remember when I first heard that, I thought, really? Cooperation? It's like Prabhupada's making a big thing of it, like it may be difficult. And I thought, what's so difficult about cooperation? Just get together, do things, and haribol. But, we've learnt in the meantime that it may not be, well, not just may not be, but sometimes it really isn't so easy. And you get a little sort of glimpse into Prabhupada's thinking on the subject. It's deep. It's managerial, but it's very transcendentally deep. It's not just managerial, I don't know who the latest management guru is in the business world. There was one I think there is one management guru. I believe he's in Canada now. And his name, what's his name? Oh gosh. Anyway, his mother was a famous Jewish artist, really famous all over the world, who lived in South Africa. Lipkin, have you heard of Michael Lipkin? He's a management guru. He's based now in Canada, and he's, very famous. And his mother was a devotee. She passed away, unfortunately. She was a very famous artist, Jewish, living in South Africa. One of her sculptures is in the Tel Aviv University, in the main sort of square in the university. So this Michael Lipkin, he was doing a program, one of his management guru programs, somewhere in South Africa, a good few years ago, like 20 years ago. And he was going around to all the participants, and the idea was, positive thinking. Can we do it? Yes. Can you do it? Yes. Can you do it? Yes. It's the whole thing. So there was one devotee in the crowd, actually a disciple of mine, really nice devotee, Gujarati. Yes, he was a Gujarati businessman. He was a Gujarati businessman, unfortunately passed away. But he was just great. So, can you do it?
Yeah.
Anyway, you get the idea. So it's going around, everyone's, yes, yes. And he came to this devotee, but he didn't know it's a devotee. Said, can you do it? And the devotee went, Haribo! And Michael Lipkin was stunned. And he said, after a little silence, he said, Haribo. Because he was something of a devotee. Yes. And, when you've got devotees like Kripamoya Prabhu, I still remember the day, I think was it a Sunday morning, that you arrived in Bhaktivedanta Manor? Do you remember?
I don't think it's a long time.
Well, I know, but I remember very clearly. And you were this angelic young man, really sattvic. And you were introduced, it was announced, look here he is. And I saw it, I thought, wow, he looks really mode of goodness, really different from me. But when you got people like him around, it's easy to cooperate. We actually, for some time, every now and then, we would distribute books together, right?
Yeah.
Do you remember? We went to Northern Ireland, do you remember that?
Very well.
Cold rain. Yeah. Anyway, when you've got devotees like this, it's easy to cooperate. But when you've got, some of these sort of funny devotees can be a challenge. You know, one time, one devotee approached Srila Prabhupada and said, Srila Prabhupada, this devotee, whoever it is, some devotee, this devotee, I've been trying to work with him, but he's just too much. He's too much. He does this, he doesn't do that, and he undoes something else, and he's too much, and I just can't work with him. And Srila Prabhupada said, well, he's a devotee. You should try to work with him and find a way to work with him. But the devotee said, but Srila Prabhupada, he's too much, he's three much. and he does all the wrong things and doesn't do the right things, and he's just too much. And I just can't work with him. And Srila Prabhupada said, you know, he is a devotee. You should try. Prabhupada said, you should tolerate him as I tolerate you. So I don't know if you've heard that one before. It's a really good one. Because don't worry. No matter how, nice you are and so on like that, there's at least one person who's tolerating you. Whenever they see you, they think, oh my gosh. So cooperation, Prabhupada made that very, very famous statement. And like I said, when I first heard it, I thought, why is he emphasizing that? It's just, it's like, take it for granted, it's a given. You just cooperate. There you go. So, but actually, it really is significant. And Srila Prabhupada, although Srila Prabhupada was extremely spiritual, just fantastically spiritual, but Prabhupada was always mindful about how things are organized or not properly organized, or how things should be organized. There's a famous story, it's in Leelamrita somewhere, when Prabhupada opened the Krishna Balaram temple in Vrindavan, then he stayed on for some time, I think weeks even, after the opening, just to see that now it's open, how is the functioning, the regular ongoing functioning going to be. And so he would go around sort of checking things and pointing out things, particularly to the temple president, whose name was, I forget his name. Anyway. So one time, Prabhupada had given class in the temple room up by the deities. You probably know where that is, in the temple room there. And then Prabhupada came out and he's looking around, and it's probably 8:30 or something in the morning, so it's broad daylight, and Prabhupada's now walking just around along the side of the the courtyard area down there. And Prabhupada saw there was one light on, although it's broad daylight. And Prabhupada said to the temple president, what are we going to do about this? And the temple president was taken aback. And he said, Srila Prabhupada, we will become Krishna conscious about the light. I guess the implication or the idea was, if we become more Krishna conscious, we'll turn the lights off at the right time instead of just wasting, even though it's not a large amount of money, but it's some money. So what will we do about this? We will become Krishna conscious, Srila Prabhupada. Prabhupada said, an impractical suggestion. It's a little hard to imagine, isn't it? Becoming Krishna conscious could be an impractical suggestion. But, we have to appreciate the context. Yeah, so there's a lot we can learn just by observing or studying, reading about Srila Prabhupada and how he conducted himself. This devotee who was the first president, I think, one of the first, he was a sannyasi. What was his name? Akshayananda Swami, who was a New Zealander. And did you mention? I'm born and raised in New Zealand, believe it or not. And I used to distribute books in the streets in London way back, 45 years ago or more. When I would meet American people, they would say, "Oh, what part of England are you from?" And when I would meet British people, they would ask, "What part of America are you from?" And I would sometimes say, "The part called New Zealand." So one day, Srila Prabhupada was talking about the Americans. Oh, gosh. Don't mind, Mataji, you're American, right? I don't know. Oh, no. Don't. Totally different. So, not just the Americans, but you Americans. The pointing to him, Akhayananda Swami, the temple president. You Americans, something this and something that, and you Americans. And Akhayananda Swami said, well, actually, Srila Prabhupada, I'm not American, I'm from New Zealand. Prabhupada gave him one of those looks, I can't imitate it. And Prabhupada said, it is the same thing. I remember he told me personally, it was 1976, he told me that at Koyananda, because I had to stay on after the festival to get some deity paraphernalia for Radha Gokulananda, I think it was, but for the deities in London. And I had to stay in the temple there in Vrindavan, and he found out I was a New Zealander. But, yeah, we can learn a lot from Srila Prabhupada when it comes to management in many ways. One of the most important parts of organization, cooperation, one of the most important parts is caring for, in our case, for the devotees, or just caring for everyone for that matter. But first of all, for the devotees. And there's a nice story which will, I think, illustrate to you Prabhupada's mood of caring, even in a situation. Anyway, let me just tell you the story. That in Los Angeles, Prabhupada, at some point, I don't know exactly, but I think maybe 74, 75, that sort of period, Prabhupada stayed for quite some time, some weeks or even maybe a couple of months or something, in Los Angeles, which was the main, biggest temple really in ISKCON at that time, sort of like the headquarters, if anything was. So, and the BBT was and is based there, the book trust, book publication. So one girl, young girl, sort of 20-ish or thereabouts, 25 maybe, joined the temple full time. And she was an artist, she said. She said she was an artist, and she asked, could I paint for Srila Prabhupada's books? And the devotees who are running the BBT, I think Rameshwar and Jayadvaita Maharaj, they said, well, why don't you paint something and we'll show it to Prabhupada and we'll see what he thinks. So she painted a painting of Krishna looking really quite distressed. Really quite distressed. So they took her in and showed the picture to Prabhupada. And Prabhupada's looking at the picture. And Prabhupada is going like this. You know what I mean? Not like, the traditional. I've been around Indians a long time. I live with them in South Africa. So it's like a no type of shake, like this Prabhupada's looking at him. And after, looking at it for some little time, Prabhupada said, what is this painting? And the girl said, Srila Prabhupada, this is Krishna feeling separation from Srimati Radharani. And Prabhupada looking at the picture still, Prabhupada said, no. This is not what Krishna looks like when he's feeling separation from Radharani. That separation is the most blissful state. But you've made Krishna look miserable. Prabhupada said, you have made Krishna look like some young boy who has just lost his girlfriend. Srila Prabhupada said. And Prabhupada said, so we cannot use this picture, and he gave it back. So now the girl's got the picture, and she started crying, and crying, and crying. And then she cried, and cried, and shook. And there was Rameshwar, I think Swami, and Jayadvaita, who's a brahmachari at the time, I guess. And they thought we should just, sort of take her by the arm and just lead her out. But they felt they couldn't touch her because she's a woman. Yeah, so they sort of, didn't know what to do. And this girl's just crying and crying like for a couple of minutes. And Prabhupada's sitting and watching. And Prabhupada said, 1 minute, let me see that picture again. So she gave Prabhupada the picture again. Prabhupada's now looking at the picture, and this time he's going like this. And after, whatever, little bit of time, Prabhupada said, yes, we can use this picture. Prabhupada said, we will call this picture Krishna Has a Headache. So you see, Prabhupada, he really cared for the devotees. Even though the devotees were Westerners, and by, the standards of some of his contemporaries, they're like, not to be taken so seriously. I mean, to say the least in some cases. But Srila Prabhupada really took his disciples, and he took people seriously. He really took people seriously. And he was really interested, and he really cared. And when it comes to organization and cooperation, if you don't care, if you don't actually care, then a lot of people at least, or maybe all people, but certainly a lot of people, they'll pick up on that, and it'll just sort of undermine their enthusiasm, and, well, it'll undermine their opinion of you, and it'll make your attempts at organizing and cooperating more difficult. So caring is just one of the most important parts of organization and cooperation. And if you really do care, then so many people will feel that. I mean, it'll be obvious pretty much to many people, particularly if they're a little sensitive, that you're actually interested in them. You actually want to help them. And wow, they'll get so inspired, particularly, not just to push the business on and make more sales or something like that, but the inspiration for practicing and spreading Krishna consciousness is such a deep thing. When devotees tune into it, they really become like, gosh, what to say? They become overwhelmed. Even people who are not so dynamic by their sort of upbringing and all that, they become extremely dynamic people who can make a great difference in just the ongoing Krishna consciousness movement and its development. So that's one thing, devotee care, caring for devotees and caring for people and being interested in people. And I'll give you another example. This is, I think you'll get it. Do you know Trivikram Maharaj? You know Trivikram Maharaj? I don't know if he comes to England. I do happen to know him pretty well, actually, because he visits Ukraine. And we were in Ukraine. What now? It's the 6th, isn't it? We were in Ukraine 1 month ago today, having a festival. And you know what Ukraine's like. So anyway, the festival there, he and I and Naranjan Maharaj, who's the GBC there, we've attended that festival for many years, like, 10 years or more, every year except for COVID. And we would sit down for breakfast and lunch with Trivikram Maharaj. And somehow, it's like with Giriraj Maharaj, you've got to learn how to stimulate them to start talking about their experiences with Prabhupada. Because I tell you, it is just amazing. So Trivikram Maharaj told us this one story. And it's in the vein of care and interest and taking a devotee seriously. Prabhupada was in Vrindavan and his masseur got sick and couldn't massage him. And Prabhupada being massaged, it was not just like some luxury, like an hour a day, half an hour in the morning, half an hour in the afternoon. It wasn't just a luxury, but he had like a type of a stroke or something along those lines. And so he needed the massage and quite strong massage to stimulate his nervous system. So he needed someone to massage him. And Trivikram Maharaj volunteered. And he's pretty strong. I mean, just to give you an idea, Trivikram Maharaj is 81. I don't know if anyone here is 80 plus, but he's 81. You're 81? You're aging very well.
Next month, I'll be 81.
When?
Next month.
Next month? Next month he will be 82. But anyway, you're doing very well. You're really doing. You look like you're 51. Maximum 61. So yeah, at this festival, just as a point of interest, Trilakran Maharaj, he was leading kirtan and dancing wildly for hours every day at the age of 81. Okay, anyway, back to the story. So he volunteered to massage Prabhupada. He'd never done it before. He'd never massaged anyone or been massaged. But he just sort of got stuck into it, as he thought would be the way that you might do it. And Prabhupada was appreciative. And it went on for half an hour. And just in the last few minutes, Prabhupada said, in 1 week, I will be going to America. And Trivikram Maharaj, now he's getting into the massage, and Prabhupada's expressed some appreciation already. And Trivikram Maharaj said, "Oh, Prabhupada, I should come with you because you need someone to massage you." And Prabhupada said, "No, it's all right. Upendra is there. Upendra is there. He knows massage." Okay. So next day, massage is going on, Trivikram Maharaj, and he's really got this idea: I must go to America and be with Prabhupada. So he said, Srila Prabhupada, I really think I should come to America with you because you need someone who knows how to give you a strong massage. And Prabhupada said, no, Upendra is there. He can do massage. So this went on for the week. I mean, I could just repeat the same thing for every day, but you get the idea. Finally, on the last day, Trivikram Maharaj thought, it is my last chance, somehow I've got to do it. So he said, Srila Prabhupada, I really must come with you to do the massage. I feel very strongly I must do it. And Prabhupada, no, it's all right. Upendra is there. And Trivikram Maharaj is defeated. And Trivikram Maharaj said, Srila Prabhupada, is Upendra a nice boy? And Srila Prabhupada said, yes, he is a very nice boy, but not as nice as you. And then Maharaj told us that then he understood that Prabhupada really loved him. And, devotees, as they appreciated that side of Prabhupada, the loving, caring side, they would be ready to give their lives, no problem, without a thought. So, in the context of Krishna consciousness, again, it's the point of devotee care. Yeah, Prabhupada cared about him. You heard of Jayananda Prabhu, I suppose. Many of you would have heard of him. He, he was very dear to Srila Prabhupada. And one time, he was from San Francisco and he was based there. And one time, Prabhupada was arriving by plane from somewhere, and the devotees waiting at the airport. And this maybe Jayananda Prabhu had seen Prabhupada once or twice or a couple of times before, but not much at all. And Jayananda was big. He was as I understand, I never met him, but as I understand, he was over 6 feet tall, maybe 6'2" or something. So he was a big man, and Srila Prabhupada physically was small. He, I think, was 5'6" or something like that. He was quite small. So the devotees are there, and they're having kirtan, and everyone's excited. And then Prabhupada comes through, and they all come forward. And Jayananda came forward and embraced Prabhupada and picked Prabhupada up and turned around 360 degrees, holding Prabhupada, and put him down. And Srila Prabhupada said, you do not normally do that with the spiritual master. So that's also devotee care, because you've got to care for the seniors too. It's not just the juniors. It's not just the juniors, yeah. I don't know. Anyway, let me tell you the story. You may have heard the story. Have you heard the story about the deity installation in Amsterdam, 1972? You know the story?
The apple story?
Huh?
The apple?
Apple?
Cutting of the apple?
No, he. It's okay, good try. Well, it may actually be, but anyway. So they were doing deity installation in a property they just acquired. Would you believe, devotees, fasten your seatbelts? It was a petrol station, Haribol, and they were converting it into a temple. Okay, so there they are, doing the deity installation. And these are the deities, Radha Gopinath, who are now in Radhadesh. Right. But they were in Amsterdam first. So, and it was being televised live, like for an hour, on some sort of national network. And the devotees were doing everything wrong. And Prabhupada, Hari Sori Prabhu told me that if you did something wrong, like you really did something wrong, Prabhupada would chastise you. He would tell you that this is wrong, you must not do that. And, so it really makes an impact on you. So you'd learn. So Prabhupada was being like that. Then finally, they're almost there, that the last thing is to do a havan, a fire yajna. So they had built, I guess with bricks, as we do often, some sort of little place for the fire to burn, but there was no decoration or like fruit or vegetables around it. It was just sort of naked. And Prabhupada said to the temple president where is the fruit? Where's the fruit? Temple president ran into the kitchen. Where's the fruit? Where's the fruit? Prabhupada wants the fruit. It may be the same story, yeah. So the devotees, they knew that when Prabhupada has fruit, he likes it cut up, sort of like a salad. So they cut up the quickest fruit salad in ISKCON history, and a nice big one. And the president took it out. Prabhupada, here's the fruit. And Prabhupada looked at this, because it's meant to be whole fruits around the sacrifice arena. Prabhupada looked at it, and this is like, it's the last straw. Prabhupada just looked away and didn't say anything. Because when he was really upset, he would not say anything. So right where Mataji is, was a young hippie boy who was a bit of a devotee to some degree. And, long, greasy hair and, not at all well dressed. And he's standing there, he's got beads because he's a bit of a devotee. He's chanting and watching as things go wrong and watching Prabhupada's reaction. And now this happens. And he leans over to Srila Prabhupada. Prabhupada's sort of looking in his direction somewhat. And he says, Prabhupada, just chant Hare Krishna. And Prabhupada, he's standing up, Prabhupada sitting down. Prabhupada looked at him like, who are you? And Prabhupada picked up his beads and started chanting Hare Krishna. You can take gold from a dirty place, because he really was quite dirty. Yes. So, but anyway, Prabhupada was very organized himself. One time, when the devotee, he was traveling with his small group of assistants, and he had deities with him, Radha Krishna deities, small. And they stopped. They were driving from one city to another, but they stopped for lunch or for a break in another place where there was a temple on the way. And so the devotee who, amongst other things, his duty was to look after the deities, because Prabhupada didn't always do the puja himself. This one devotee would often do the puja. So the devotee thought, we're only going to be here for a couple of hours, so we'll just leave the deities in their traveling case, and we'll carry on with take a shower and have some prasadam and so on like that. And Prabhupada came in and saw that the deities are still in the box, but the devotees had a nice shower now, and he's refreshed, but the deities are just in the box. And Prabhupada chastised him that look at you. You're looking after yourself very nicely, but what about looking after the deities? Yeah. So Prabhupada, he was very sensitive and he was a very organized person. I remember when I got second initiation, it was sometime in 74, I forget exactly. But anyway, it was sometime in 74 in Bhaktivedanta Manor. And the yajna was performed. Well, Prabhupada, let me first of all say, Prabhupada was very particular in a nice way, not just sort of, finicky and too finicky, but he was attentive to detail. Before the second initiation ceremony, it was meant to be like the next day. Prabhupada called all of us into his main darshan room, in Bhaktivedanta Manor. I assume you're all familiar with that. So we all came in, there's, 10 of us or so. We offer obeisances to Prabhupada. Then Prabhupada asked, so, are you all chanting your rounds? There were two young girls, they are sort of, 20-ish or so, and they giggled and said, no, Srila Prabhupada. And you know what Prabhupada did? He cancelled the whole initiation for all of us. including me. I was chanting around. And the others, we were all, several others of us, we were all chanting around. I tell you what, those girls were not so popular. But anyway, the initiation happened 2 weeks later, so yeah, it was all right. But let me just, it's related to organization. It definitely is, in a certain respect. But it's also just an interesting story. When I got second initiation, the yajna was on the one day, but we got the mantras the next day, the next morning. We had to go in, there was some number of us, 4 or 5 or something, and one by one we had to go in and get the mantras from Srila Prabhupada, Gayatri mantras. 7. We chant 7 Gayatri mantras. So I was the first one to go in on my own. And I had been in Prabhupada's presence a number of times. In fact, Prabhupada actually was the first devotee I ever saw at university in Auckland, New Zealand. 1972, I was at university in Auckland University, and Prabhupada came. But anyway, so here we are. I'd never been with him, like sitting with him and talking with him and having some real interaction. And Prabhupada, like I said right at the beginning, he had a real presence to him. He really did. And particularly for disciples, it was very sort of, like you got to be on your best, of your best behavior. Yeah. So I came and offered my obeisances, and if you know the setup there, Prabhupada's sitting with the window on that side, with the window behind him, right?
Yeah.
On that side. So I went over, offered my obeisances. Now I'm kneeling, kind of, if Prabhupada's sitting here, kind of where Mataji's sitting, or maybe slightly forward. So there I am, and I've got Harinam Chadar on, dhoti, and my Brahmin thread. And Prabhupada looks at me. Prabhupada says, "Why have you got your Brahmin thread on?" I didn't know. I just did. They put it on me. So, it was just one of those things. It's sort of like breathing. It's just there. So I became stunned and I couldn't say anything. Prabhupada waited, just a second or two and said, "Who put it on you?" And I told him the name of the devotee was Rabbatanandan Swami. Rabbatanandan Swami Prabhupada. Prabhupada said, "Why did he put it on you?" I didn't know why he put it on me. You just get it put on. That's second initiation. There you go. So again, I became silent. So what he did, and this is to do with organization and I guess cooperation. He called for the temple president, who at the time was Mukunda Prabhu, now Mukunda Maharaj. So he was temple president. He was he was wearing white at least. So he called for him, temple president. In came Mukunda Prabhu. Now, when Prabhupada would come, there'd be a lot of devotees would come from Europe, from France, from Holland, Belgium, I guess particularly those places, and maybe Germany. Devotees would come from Germany. So there were probably in the temple, staying in the temple, I would say a couple of hundred devotees or something like that, with all these extra devotees. At least it was busy. And he was the temple president, and I was sort of like his assistant kind of thing. I was the treasurer and his assistant. So, it was so busy. I got up really early to finish my rounds before Mongol Arati, because after Mongol Arati, there it was just action stations all the way for the whole day. Devotees who want this and that and help and to go somewhere and all that. So anyway, he called him in. And this is now Mukunda Prabhu, temple president. He's really busy, really busy. And Prabhupada asks him, why has this boy got his Brahmin thread on? And Mukunda Prabhu, like me, is just, he had no idea. Why? Out of, a multitude of things happening around, he's expected to know that. And so he didn't, either he didn't say something or said he didn't know. Prabhupada said, though, why don't you know? You are the temple president. You must know what is going on. So there's something about organization for you. Yeah, Prabhupada accepted the temple presidents and like the authorities, not just like if you're in charge of the deity program, he would expect you to know everything that's going on in the deity program. If you're the head cook, he would expect you to know everything that's going on. In fact, Badri Narayan Maharaj, who you might or might not know, he's based in California. He told us that when he first became temple president in San Diego in California, then Srila Prabhupada came touring around America. He came to San Diego just shortly after. And Badri Narayan Maharaj, householder at the time, he wanted to go on a morning walk with Prabhupada and ask some question about being a temple president and get some deep instruction from Prabhupada how to be a temple president. So one day, while Prabhupada's in San Diego, he got the opportunity. He went with a few other senior devotees. Out they went, and so at a kind of suitable point, he said, Srila Prabhupada, what are the duties of the temple president? Srila Prabhupada stopped, as he would do, and turned and put his cane, his walking stick down sort of firmly, and looked at him and said, temple president is the person who, whatever goes wrong in the temple, it's his fault. Picked up his cane, turned around, and walked off. So, yeah. So Prabhupada really had expectations of devotees who are doing organization in his ISKCON. And I'm sure some of you are. And if you're not, I'm sure you will be, sooner or later. Yeah. Like Dr. Saab, yeah, Dr. J, Doc. What a responsibility he's got. He's got to save the lives of all the devotees in ISKCON. And if he can't, it'll be his fault. Excuse me.
I accept my fault.
Haribol. So anyway, I don't know how long I should go on for. I could go on for quite a while, but I thought it'd be nice to do it in this way. I didn't know whether I was going to have a sort of, I've done before, like a seminar on leadership, how to be a leader and not just a manager, the difference between leading and managing, and the qualities of a leader. But then I thought it'd be nice to talk more about Srila Prabhupada. But in that context. So there you go, devotees. Those are a few ideas. But Kripa Moya Prabhu, could you throw a little light on the subject? Clear up some of the confusion I've created.
I think you've eliminated it. But
I'm just keen to know the end of the story of the Gayatri.
All right. Sorry. Yeah, actually, I must tell you that because, I do. I tell the story regularly. So, okay, Mukunda, Prabhupada really scolded him for not knowing why I had my Brahmin thread on. Sure, really. And then Prabhupada just sort of excused him like, "Now go." And so then Prabhupada turned to me. And Prabhupada, he's in arguably maybe a slightly irritated mood. I mean, he's never really, you couldn't really say that about Prabhupada, but he was in a bit of a sharp mood, you could say that. So Prabhupada then turned to me, and like I said, I'm kneeling about a meter away. It's more or less a meter away. And Prabhupada hands me this little sheet. It's like this size. It's like half of an A5, if you know what I mean. It's small. And on it, typed out, are these 7 Gayatri mantras. And of course, I knew I had gone in to receive Gayatri, but what that meant, what that entailed, I didn't know there were 7 mantras. I just thought, you get Gayatri and you walk out. So that there's these 7 mantras. And I was not and am not a Sanskrit expert by any means, particularly at that time, I really was not. So I look at these mantras, never seen them before, and some of them are a bit complicated. And Prabhupada quickly recited them to me. I mean, I can't recite them to you, otherwise I'd be giving you second initiation. But he really recited them quickly as you could. Yeah. And he said, now you say them. So I had to read these mantras I'd never seen before, and not being expert, but somehow, Hare Krishna, I didn't make a mistake. I mean, my pronunciation, I'm sure, wasn't the best, but at least I didn't get it all jumbled. So then Prabhupada showed me how to count. Those of you who have second initiation know what that means. You've got to count to 10 while putting your thumb in different positions on your fingers. Right, and he showed me like this, no kidding, like this. He said, yes, you count like this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Now you do it. Really, I tell you what. I mean, he did it quickly. I didn't know anything about you got to do anything 10 times. So, wow. Am I going to get it right or what? So that I managed to get it right. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 9, 10. And that was okay. And then Prabhupada let me go. That was really an experience. That was really an experience. And it's now, it's 8:45. We don't want, you to be late to go to bed. Early to bed, early to rise. But I could just tell you another thing, personal experience I had with Prabhupada, which, it's interesting, but it's also, I'd say, relevant to the subject matter. It was 74, and I was staying in Bhaktivedanta Manor for a while. And that, during that time I got second initiation. So I was the treasurer and I was assisting Mukunda Prabhu. So, and Prabhupada would occasionally, not often, he would give a darshan, and devotees could go in, like the residents, and just sit there, and Prabhupada would talk and you could ask questions. And one devotee asked a question that Srila Prabhupada in Nectar of Devotion, it says, there's one chapter which lists out many offences. If you've read Nectar of Devotion, you would know what I'm talking about. That chapter is just full, like 60, 70 offences. So Prabhupada, you say there that the first groups of offences, if you do them, then you don't really need to do anything to overcome the reactions. You just carry on practicing Krishna consciousness. But then you list out, and it's at the end of the chapter, you list out the 10 offences, sort of the classic 10 offences. And there, and it's a fact, you can check it and see, Prabhupada says if you commit those offences, you cannot escape the reaction. So devotee asked Prabhupada, isn't there a way that you can overcome the reactions to those offences? And Srila Prabhupada really gave him one of those looks, which I can't do, so I won't try. But he looked at him for 2 seconds, maybe 3, and I thought, gosh, what's going to happen? What's Prabhupada going to say? Then Prabhupada said, you are asking this question because you want to offend. You want to offend, and then you want to just do something just to escape the reactions. But you must stop offending. No more offences. Unfortunately, the whole darshan was not recorded. I've tried to find it, but I was there. And wow, So it's extremely instructive for us that, it's such a foundational principle to not offend, or at the very least, to just really try to not offend. So that was one point. Then another point was, a devotee asked Prabhupada that what if, and I forget the exact details, but it's sort of like, what if you're on a desert island and you've eaten all the seaweed that you could reach in the sea, and that's it? And there's just you and one animal. Would it be all right to kill the animal and eat the animal? And Srila Prabhupada turned and looked at me. Well, where was I? I was somewhere, like where you are, more or less. Prabhupada turned and looked at me, and Prabhupada said, a devotee would rather die. How's that? That's instructive, isn't it? Yeah, that's nice. So anyway, Haribol, there's all sorts of things. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Additions, subtractions, corrections.
I have a question.
Oh,
I mean, these are all very competent people you have here, business people. But how did one person with no money start 108 branches all over the world of anything, let alone a religious movement, when people were not interested in religion. How did he do that?
I never thought of that. No, that's just a great question. Thank you. That's almost the question to answer, to end all questions. Let me just, before I get into it, tell you an interesting point. Because I'm based in Durban, South Africa, when Nelson Mandela, you've all heard of him, got out of jail, whatever it was, 1990 or 91 or something, whatever it was. But before he became president a year or some little time after. He was the head of that party. It's called the ANC, African National Congress. So he went around sort of trying to drum up support, I guess. And he came to our temple in Durban, because our temple is very prominent. It's the most prominent sort of Hindu temple, or whatever you call it, in the country, pretty much. Something like that. So he came with a bit of an entourage, and I showed him around. Yeah. And Nelson Mandela, I mean, he was like either a very good politician or a real gentleman, but he was extremely nice. And so I'm showing him around. Well, first we meet him by the entranceway to the actual temple room, and we go up into the temple room. And Prabhupada's on the left, so he came around, I bowed down, he bowed down. Then we went and sat sort of diagonally across from Prabhupada. We both sat together. And he's looking at Prabhupada. It's a bit of a distance because it's a big temple room. Have you been there? You haven't been there. Why not? Because we didn't invite you, I guess. I'm sorry about that. But you've been to Mauritius, haven't you? I remember that. So anyway, he's looking at Prabhupada, and I'm sitting right next to him. And he turned to me, and he said, how did he do it? So I had told him that he did it alone. So he turned to me and said, how did he do it? I had explained to him a little bit already that Prabhupada's like you, but he's a spiritual revolutionary, and he really liked that. Then I explained to him, I told him that he always felt that his spiritual master was right next to him. So he did not feel that he was alone. I think it's an important sort of element in the picture of transcendent reality. And, Nelson Mandela, he really seemed to appreciate that because he felt he had mentors, in his way. Yeah, he was kind of like a bit of an impersonalist. He had a feeling for like everyone and everything. He wasn't just for this group and not that group. So anyway, I thought you'd be interested to hear that. And you want to hear another good one? There you go. Fasten your seatbelts. I don't even know if I should tell you this, but Giriraj Maharaj told me once he met Sai Baba. You heard about that? You didn't know that? He met Sai Baba at a wedding in Bombay of one of these, I don't know if they were the Burlas or the Hindujas, but like the real top billionaires, just not just, your cheap multi-millionaires, but just the biggest people. And Sai Baba came for the wedding. And Giriraj Maharaj met Sai Baba. And Sai Baba was very appreciative of Srila Prabhupada and of Krishna, the movement. He was very appreciative. Yeah. Okay, anyway, I shouldn't have told you that. Let me tell you another one. Giriraj Maharaj personally told me these things. It's Bombay, Juhu. Prabhupada's living on top of one of the old blocks of flats. They're like 3 or 4 story blocks on the ground. So we got control or somehow to some rooms on top. Giriraj Maharaj is going up to meet with Prabhupada, and he's just approaching Prabhupada's door. One man, like a businessman, came barging out of Prabhupada's room, obviously really not happy at all. And Giriraj Maharaj tried to go Hare Krishna, and expecting him to say Hare Krishna. The man ignored him and just went. And Maharaj went in, Prabhupada's sitting like who? Anyway, Prabhupada's sitting with one knee up and an elbow on one knee, cross-legged, like him. Except with one knee down. That's it. Thank you. And Prabhupada looked a little concerned. And Prabhupada said to him, you must remind me not to tell people that Ramakrishna's a rascal. All right. Where we going? So how did Prabhupada do it? At the age of 71, just starting. I mean, I'm 71, and you know what they say? Do you know what they say? Old age is not for sissies. And it's true. It's really true. But he started.
Yeah.
28 hours. But he started, so how did he do it? Well, the first thing I'd say is that Srila Prabhupada was given the mission by his spiritual master. And his spiritual master meant everything to him. Was just the beginning, the middle, and the end of his life. And if Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati had told him to do something else, he would have done it in the same way. Like, absolutely, despite whatever challenges, obstacles, etc. were there. So I think that's at least an extremely important part of the whole sort of picture with Srila Prabhupada, that it was his mission means it was his life. And of course he was married, he waited for some time before he waited for many years actually, before he really began. But he was preparing the whole time. He was writing in English, not in Hindi. I mean, he's in Vrindavan, North India. It's Hindi land. So, but he's writing in English and often doing programs with people and speaking in English. And those of you who are a bit older, you'd know what it was like 1950s in India. People didn't really speak much English at all. really not much at all. So he was doing all of this, but it was in the mood was his mission to preach in the English language, which ultimately means to preach to the Westerners. So he was preparing, as the book is titled, A Lifetime in Preparation, if you know what I mean, the biography. Yeah, so that's a very important part of it. And I'd say also another important part and related is just his sense of compassion for, the unfortunate Westerners who are just, and speaking from experience. You haven't experienced it, most of you, from that side, the other side of the coin, the actual Westerner side. Sure, they're a different group of people. So he felt compassion, and therefore, when people started gathering, he really dealt with them very nicely. He wasn't just official with them. Many of his godbrothers, they tended. I had a little association with a few of his godbrothers, and they tended to be official. They weren't sort of disrespectful or anything like that, but they weren't warm. There was a real lack of warmth, like, here is an outsider. That's me. But we have to deal with them. Okay, so we'll deal with them. But Prabhupada was really warm from the heart because he felt compassion, actually. Not just felt compassion, but there was a depth of realization there of the spiritual reality that, like one devotee told me, that Prabhupada was not really an Indian. Now that may sound funny or silly or something, but actually Prabhupada was a transcendental person. He would say, and he did say, that he was Indian. And, he was fluent, of course, in Bengali. Basically, he was fluent in Hindi, and at least those two languages, fluent in Sanskrit. But he wasn't like ethnic. You know what I mean? He was a transcendental person. So he was at home speaking to basically anyone, really. Yeah. At home, comfortable, and like always very warm. And Giriraj Maharaj told me his parents came to India to visit him, and they met Prabhupada, and Prabhupada met with them, they spoke for an hour or so, and they were just deeply affected by their association with Prabhupada. It really made an impact. And afterwards, Giriraj Maharaj said that Prabhupada, everyone loves you, because that was how they reacted. And Prabhupada said, yes, that's because I love everyone. Yeah, that was Srila Prabhupada. Yeah. So, he had Indian disciples, not a lot, but he had Indian disciples. But he didn't distinguish, like give special attention to the Indians as some, Gaudiya gurus from other groups, special attention to the Indians and the Westerners. Oh, okay. Yeah. So I think all these things put together add up to something like that. Is that okay? Okay, devotees. No budget. Amara program kia hei. Kia hora hei. Any other question, comment? Yes, please. Just your hand. Or just shout, whatever.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, thank you so much. It was very interesting to hear about Prabhupada's stories, and you made it very light, Maharaj. We didn't know that it went an hour past by. So my question to you is more to do with your education background. You were a philosophy student at Auckland University. Very interesting to know that. And you said when you were in the university, you met Prabhupada. So I'd just like to know what inspired you to join the movement and why you decided to do it in a year. But like you said, a lifetime preparation is needed for things. Like what was that one thing that inspired you to take up Krishna consciousness?
Okay, that's good. That's nice. All right, in 68 or 69, something around there, George Harrison from the Beatles helped the devotees here make the Hare Krishna record. And the Hare Krishna record was top of the pops in many countries, including New Zealand, where I was. And so I heard it. I was a top of the pops specialist, you could say. I was really into the music of the day. So, and all my friends, they were also into this sort of music. And we all heard Hare Krishna many times. And Hare Krishna was super cool. And meditation, the Beatles do meditation. Wow. The Beatles were like demigods. Really, they were like demigods. And they liked Hare Krishna. That meant Hare Krishna is really pretty cool. Yeah. So that was, like a basic orientation in the sense, it's not like, what is this? Here I am, I'm a New Zealander and this is Indian? What? It's like very different. It wasn't like that. It was something very relatable that you could just relate with. Yeah, so there wasn't, like I would say, there was not a prejudice. There was a real acceptance, not just like India and Indian things are all right, but that Indian things are really good because the Beatles and others were really into them. Whoops. So that was there. Then, but I wasn't really thinking about it after that record was popular for a while, as these hit parade records for a while. Then it sort of dropped out. So I kind of not exactly forgot about it, but I definitely wasn't focused on it at all. But then I was at the university studying philosophy, only philosophy, nothing else, and only really because I wanted to understand life and myself and what's going on like that. I really wanted to understand. And a lot of young people at that time, they felt similarly. Yeah. So then there I was. It was April. We don't know exactly the date, but it's either the 12th or 14th. I'm walking through the university around 10ish or sometime in the morning. And coming from the right, I hear the sound of like little bells ringing. So I turned around, and there, about 20 meters, 15 meters away, was Srila Prabhupada walking towards me. Yeah. And yeah, there were two girls, young girls, one on either side, like there, of Prabhupada, dancing very gracefully with saris on. And each one had a basket of red rose petals. They're throwing them in front of Prabhupada as he walked. And he was just sort of cruising along, looking down at the world. And this thought just entered my mind. This must be like heaven. And, there's a lot more I could say, but then Prabhupada did a program in the university, outside, in the main quadrangle opposite the cafeteria. And so there's a lot of young people there, probably 100 around, and Prabhupada spoke. And was it you were saying? Who was it was saying? About the flower? Oh, it was you, wasn't it? Sorry. Prabhupada said, you can look at that if you've got database, Prabhupada's books and things on computer, it's there. 1972, April, Auckland University, you can read it. So Prabhupada basically said, you are all the flower of your country. So don't. Anyway, you read it and see. Like, just don't waste your lives. Yeah. So it struck me to some degree. But you know what happened? After that, I'm still studying at the university, but I developed a really negative attitude towards material life, and particularly working to make money just to subsist, that whole idea. I really did. And to go to the university in Auckland, sort of up the top of the main street, and I would take a bus in, comes to the bottom of the main street, then I had to walk up. And I see all these people running around, going to work and doing this and that. And it really bothered me. What are these people doing? They're wasting their lives. I didn't understand that Krishna consciousness was the answer. But my understanding is that Prabhupada's association had an impact on my heart, which made me think in ways that I was not thinking before, and really, really seriously think. So then later that year I came to England. I arrived in London in December sometime, started visiting the temple. And, so I thought that this Hare Krishna, even though I didn't understand it, I thought that it's really something good, very interesting. And Prabhupada, I thought, he's talking about God, but it's not just the usual Christian, believe this and have faith in that. It was science, it was philosophical, because I was into philosophy and things that made sense. And I noted, this man makes sense about religion, about God. So then I came, and on my first visit to the temple in Berry Place, London, I was introduced to Dhananjaya Prabhu. Some of you might know him. He was the temple president at the time. And he asked me my name, I told him. And he said, oh, we have the same family name. It's a kind of, not really obscure, but quite unusual old Scottish name. And he told me the story of how his father told him how the family got the name. It was the same story my father told me about how the family got the name. So we realized we were related. And he invited me to come and stay as a guest. And a little couple of weeks later I did, and I'm still here as a guest. And that's what happened in a nutshell. Yes, Doctor.
Yes, sure. I understand. Thank you very much. And this was very, very interesting sense you mentioned. I have 2 questions, but I think that in the interest of time, I'll just ask the first one first and see how it goes.
Mm-hmm.
I had the great opportunity to drive you the other day, and we spoke in the car, and I talked to you about the Bhaktivedanta Medical Station.
Right.
And when you got out of the car, you were just about to enter the house. You turned around and mentioned something, and I just stuck in my brain. I just wanted to ask you the purport of that. You said Prabhupada would be very happy with you. And you just said that and just walked away. And it was just not a casual statement. You actually had some really deep thought into that. So I just wanted to, because it has been on my mind since you spoke, but I just wanted to get the purport from you.
Okay, yeah. Well, I would say it's fairly straightforward, means Prabhupada, and I really do feel Prabhupada would be very happy, extremely happy, because Prabhupada was very happy when intelligent people, qualified, established people, who kind of like people who have some standing in society, when they would use their skills in the service of his movement. He really appreciated that. And that's what you're doing. And I'm sure Prabhupada would be really appreciative. Like George Harrison, I mentioned a little. When we got the manna, George Harrison came to visit, and he asked Prabhupada, I'm told I was not actually in the room, but I was told he asked Prabhupada, or suggested, maybe he should join full time. Yeah. But Prabhupada told him, no, don't do that. Keep singing, but use your music to spread Krishna consciousness. So, normally if someone said to Prabhupada or any of us, I think I'd like to join full time, normally we say, right, let's go. But Prabhupada said, no, don't do that. So, because he was, very qualified in his own way and extremely prominent. So, yeah, and after that time, he did help spread Krishna consciousness a lot. And so, you're doing that and you're developing the network, which will, it'll help devotees particularly, but it'll also touch many people, just other people. It definitely will, because it's, it's such a highly sophisticated type of project. It'll touch many people's, it'll save many people's lives, probably. So I'm sure Prabhupada's very pleased. Hare Krishna. Yes, Mataji. Loud and clear.
Switch on.
Hare Krishna. So, Maharaj, I was just reflecting on in Lilamrita, actually Satsvarup Maharaj writes that Prabhupada used to say difficulties are assets.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was just reflecting on that, basically that it is a very, of course, deep statement, but for people like us, very difficult to follow also, because Prabhupada's life, of course, was all about that. So, I just sometimes wonder, that if when there are challenges and I'm thinking to myself and I'm thinking like, okay, what would Prabhupada tell us in this situation?
Okay, you were not in Bhakti Churu Maharaj's program, were you there? Are you there? I mentioned about that, how Srila Bhaktisiddhanta said, as gold is purified by fire, a devotee is purified by the fire of ordeal. Yes, so difficulties, they, at least if for some person who's not so serious, difficulty just means, oh, I give up. It's a good excuse to give up. But for someone who's serious, difficulty is something which, if really, dealt with straight on under the lotus feet of Guru and Krishna, it'll really help you, the devotee, to develop. Because generally these difficulties are kind of custom designed for you and not for him or for her, to address certain things in you which Krishna feels you would benefit if you addressed them. Yeah. So if you do like that, like pray to Krishna that, you're sent this test, it's a test. It really is. But I know, I have firm confidence that it is for my betterment. So you please help me to see it like that and understand how to deal with it so that I am bettered through it like that. And just one other thing I can say, which is, well, two things. One thing is Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj, I don't know if you knew him. Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj would say that whenever I see that here comes a test, he would say, here comes Krishna in the form of a test. Prabhupada, once Swarup Damodar, Bhakti Swarup Damodar Maharaj, he became later, but Swarup Damodar Prabhu at the time, scientist, he complained to Prabhupada that I'm trying to develop this scientific institute, but it's so hard. People won't cooperate, and people sometimes fight with each other like devotees. And, there's so many challenges. It's so difficult. He's telling Prabhupada. And then he said, Srila Prabhupada, I just don't know how you deal with the whole movement. I just don't know, how do you do it? How do you deal with the difficulties? Srila Prabhupada answered, I do not see difficulties. I do not see any difficulties. All I see is service to my Guru Maharaj. And that's what your test is. It's an opportunity to serve your spiritual master. TK. All right, you know what? I think we should finish. What do you think? Unless there's someone who's desperate.
Until tomorrow morning.
क्या?
मैंने ये कहा आपसे प्रभु, जब हम कल तक सुबह तक बैठे रहते हैं आपका प्रवचन इतना अच्छा है.
He says we can carry on till tomorrow.
Okay. 10 बजे, 11 बजे, 12 बजे, 4 बजे. Come.
घड़ी तो एक दाम है, बाकी काम तो भगवान का है.
Mangalarti. Mangalarti tak.
Maharaj, can we end with some kirtan with you?
We can try. Why don't we end with some kirtan by Kripa Monaprabhu? What do you think? I think it'd be an excellent idea. Kirtan, please.
Haribo.
Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama.